All right, everybody. So just want to let you know, in case you haven't done the Zoom thing for the last few months, I know a lot of people are getting really well versed at it, but some people are still new to it. So if you go up to your upper right-hand side, you see speaker view, and you can click on that. This is a Zoom meeting format rather than a webinar. So you're going to see everybody, but we do ask that everybody keep themselves muted unless it makes sense to unmute themselves. And but we're only going to do that if there's time, because we all have a lot of things to say. Also, just want to make sure you know that there is there's a lot of books about Diana that Diana has written, whether it's Hollywood Posse or Whatever Happened to Baby Peggy or Hollywood's Children, and you have that opportunity to look those up on the internet. We are going to be talking about Diana, and Mark and Stephanie Cary know about this webinar. They're very thankful that we're doing this. And Michael's going to put in a plug for a great GoFundMe opportunity at the very end. And just wanted to thank you all for being here.
Thank you too for having.
Thank you. And now what I'll do is I'm going to go around and introduce each one of the panelists and have him say a few words about how they came to know Diana. And I will start off with Frederick.
Well, welcome. And Larry, thank you so much for inviting me to be on your program. And I can say that, honestly, I don't really remember the first time I met Diana, though I'm positive it must have been at the Niles S&A Silent Film Theater, because she was a frequent visitor and speaker there. And I was very fortunate to be one of the panelists who got to perform for her movies, for her lectures and seminars. And this picture you're looking at, I don't think that was the first time I met her, but that is certainly one of the most important times, because that was at this big birthday party that they held for her. Larry, do you remember what year that was? Was that 2006?
I think it was 2006.
It was her 90th was 2008.
Well,
might have been the 8th.
Perhaps. Nevertheless, the very first time I met her, I was incredibly impressed. Not only because I'd known about Baby Peggy as a movie star all my life and never imagined that she could still be alive, let alone so youthful. When I finally met her, it shocked me. It made me realize that humans were capable of so much more than they normally seem to be. Because here she was, a woman 90 or approaching 90, and she was more youthful, vibrant, alive than most anyone I'd ever met. And in my capacity as a performer, I've met lots of Hollywood stars, stage stars, current and from the past. And usually, to tell you the truth, I'm very disappointed when I meet them, because they are frequently, if you're lucky, they're always on and performing for you. Oh, they're this gracious star. Oh, how nice of you to remember me. And you're grateful that they're on for you, because you suspect if they're not on, that there's something totally different and something awful. But she, Baby Peggy, Diana, was never on. She was the most genuine, warm, loving, sensitive person I think I've ever had the great fortune to meet. And you can see in this picture her beautiful, sincere smile, and she meant it. She wasn't putting it on for the camera or for me. She was always like this, loving, adorable, and incredibly incisive, perceptive. She was just a remarkable human being, and I'm so glad that I got to know her.
Great. Thank you very much. And I know that she loved to hear you play, especially her films. Michael, how about you?
Oh, well, I joined the museum back in 2006. And as far as I know, if I had known about Baby Peggy before that, I can't remember specifically, but of course, I learned all about her as soon as I joined the museum. And I seem to remember first meeting her at a Bronco Billy film festival back when we were having the meet and greet at the bank down the street. And I seem to remember meeting her for the first time there and thinking, well, what a beautiful, nice lady. And started watching her films. And I'm happy to say that she and I became fast friends. And I was always happy to be able to call her once in a while. And I learned a lot from her. I really learned a lot. And so I'm glad to have known her. So that's about it.
Great. How about you, Rena?
Oh, you're muted, Rena.
Yes, I can tell you that I met this lady and she was selling a book called Whatever Happened to Baby Peggy, and I didn't know who Baby Peggy was. that I distinctly remember that. It was about, we were doing a film festival at the school, and I thought, I really should know who this Baby Peggy person is. And then I found out it was her. And I thought, this is the nicest lady I've ever met. And again, I became very aware of who she was around in the 1920s to watch these films. And I didn't have to go to a lot of movies, repertory theater kind of places that might show, but a lot of her films weren't being shown. So she was talking about somebody from the past that really wasn't out there, except for maybe at film festivals and such. So I learned quickly who she was. And I'm really, and I'm glad to say that Stephanie Cary is on, she's watching us right now. So she just checked in. And that's her granddaughter who's in the film. And I did want to throw out that we have a lot of great films available to view today. And that includes her 90th birthday party, which is fun. And first of all, it was pointed out, Frederick, that the outfit she's wearing in her 90th birthday party is the same outfit that's in your picture. So I think we nailed it there.
Yeah, it's that event.
And then, we show Vera actually filming her. So it's really kind of a fun, that's a neat one. That was actually done with a hand crank movie camera, old fashioned. So it's a neo silent. It's not something digital. It was done old fashioned way. So I wanted to point that out. And then we've got Circus Clowns and the Kid Reporter and some other wonderful things. And on our Facebook page, I reposted a little outtake that Vera posted this morning, and it's available on our on Vimeo on our website. So you get to all see Diana up front. But no, I've been able to be, I was friends with her for quite a long time, and I'm so thankful for it.
Oh, I want to share one memory while I'm thinking about it, or I'll forget, was that 90th birthday party is very memorable because I brought my mom to it. And actually, my mom was a year older than Diana. And so that was really sweet to be able to have my mom there and to have her and Diana meet. And I would have brought her to Diana's 100th birthday party, but we were having a bunch of fires at the time and the air was horribly polluted, and I didn't want to bring my mom out to that. So, but I was glad to have her at that party. So that was a great memory for me.
Thank you, Michael. Well, I guess I'm next in line, and I met Diana sort of, it was a different kind of meeting. I was in college, had to come up with a term or a thesis paper, and about that time Classic Images came out, and there was an article about Niles written by Diana. So I wrote to the editor of the Classic Image, and the next thing I know, a week later, I get a call on the phone from Diana, and she wants to know what I want to know. And we talked for about an hour, and she told me that she would get back to me if anything came up. Well, it did. The first film festival came up, and she gave me David Keene's telephone number and Bruce Cate's telephone number, and I attended. The next few years, her husband was sick and she couldn't make it, but I went down to pick her up down in Gustine, and we had nice long conversations for that hour and 15-minute ride. So I have a lot of fond memories of Diana, and well, I'm not the same age, but we're on that side of that old age. But in this industry, it's wonderful because everything is so great for history that you don't even know what age is. And she didn't know. She was still going at 101. Maybe a little slower, but still going. Well, we saved the best for last. Vera, you're on.
Well, before we go to Vera, I just want to say hello to somebody here. Hello, Stephanie, Diana's granddaughter has joined us.
Yeah. And
Hi, good
Yeah.
morning.
and
Hi there.
Sorry,
I'm so
my
glad
camera's
you were
off.
able to join us, Stephanie.
Yeah, sorry, my camera's off. I just woke up.
Haven't we all? Okay. Okay, Vera.
Well, the first time I saw anything of Baby Peggy was, I must have been around 10, because I used to go to the postcard fairs because I was a Shirley Temple collector. And in all those postcards, there was always a Baby Peggy postcard, but that was such a long time ago, way before Shirley Temple. And I always have that in front of my eyes when you talk about the first time you have seen Baby Peggy. So that was actually a long time ago. And then it was about 1992 that I got all these movie star addresses, you know, and I loved it at the age of 17, 18 to write to Lillian Gish, James Stewart, and all those people. And then I wrote Diana. And I was very surprised with what she returned to me about a book she wrote, because I knew nothing of Baby Peggy, and she included her phone number there. So I one day took the courage to call her, and that was actually very amazing, a very strange experience that someone you only know. Yeah, there you go. That was one of those postcards that I saw. And I just thought, and it was an immediate click, and she was so lively, and we immediately had connected, and she was very open about, already immediately we spoke about life of a child star. And that's how we started. And then I got involved. I had the idea of a documentary about former child stars that was eventually made in 2003. And that was the year I first met her in Los Angeles. I was the initiator and the researcher for that documentary. And that also involved other child stars like Dickie Moore, Mickey Rooney, and Jane Withers, Sybil Jason. But still, all these, Diana was part of that film. And the story, that in-depth story that I slowly got to know from Diana and about the family life, that still had to be told. So we stayed in contact. We were always on the phone. And so eventually I started making my own first documentary, and then it took a couple of years. Diana began to visit Pordenone Silent Film Festival. And in fact, she called me, I think that one of the first times that she went to Pordenone, I just got a phone call from her from Italy. And she was so overwhelmed with the people there, the way they respect silent film, because as you know, she came from silent film, and after silent film, when sound film came, people were laughing at silent film. So she still knew of that, and now she was at the silent film festivals and people really studying film. So she was very excited about that. She felt so much at home with people talking the same language. And I think it was the year later that she came to Bristol. I bought a camera, and it was close by, Bristol, England. So I did my first interview, I think it was 2006 in January. And that's when I did the first interview. And Diana was at that time still talking about Baby Peggy as she. I don't know if you all remember that she used to talk about she. And so there was still a lot of distance towards baby Peggy. That same year, later on, she came to Pordenone again. And she said that she was going to bring Stephanie and Mark. And I was so excited that they were also coming. And that was the second time. And Diana really felt comfortable. She liked the questions I asked her. And those two meetings, those two times eventually led to the fact that she invited me to come over to her home in 2008. She already announced it, I think, in February, that Vera, they're going to celebrate my 90th birthday in Niles. Will you come over? Of course I come over. You can stay at my place. And so I succeeded in finally getting a little bit of funding so that I could pay for the trip. And that's when The Elephant in the Room was actually really made. Does that answer your question, Larry?
Great. Rita, you have some questions for Diana? For Diana. Oh boy. For Vera.
That's okay.
Okay, sure. Yes, about Diana. Well, actually, we were talking the other day, and you talked about the last day of filming. I mean, there's a few questions we have of just, what was the most difficult thing or any obstacles that you came across. But you told us a story about the photo album and then the last day of filming, which I thought was really relevant based on the fact that we're in a similar season right now. So, so what would you say were the obstacles?
About the last day, or?
Well, let's start with what do you think were the last? Or what do you think were the big obstacles or any difficulties that you came across when you were filming this?
Well, first of all, the obstacle is always that you have to do it alone. That was obstacle number one. That was never my intention, of course, if you have to, especially when you have to meet someone who is approaching 90 and you know that she's actually, I really felt that she was waiting for me to tell her story in depth. And that also gives the filmmaker, me as a person, quite a responsibility, because you don't know, it's almost a therapeutic way of interviewing. So that first of all. So, and you have the sound and the camera, so you have to find a way that she doesn't get that she forgets the camera. And because normally you have a cameraman that is over there and he controls the camera, and I have to put it on and focus on her and just trust the camera doing its job and the sound. So that's, of course, one obstacle. The other obstacle is, of course, when you have to, after filming, is that you want to add some footage, archive footage to it, and you have to approach the archives. One archive is easier than the other. And in the final, after completing the film, I added a clip from the kids reporter from the BFI, but the expenses, I couldn't afford the charges. So I had to remove that clip, put another clip, but that also meant I had to change the music that was on them. And as you all know, Gunther Buchwald did the music for the film without seeing the film. So that was also, but it's also exciting when you do something in that minor production. Secondly, what favored me is that you don't have anybody telling you what to do, how that producer or broadcaster wants the film to be. So I was free to do it the way I felt it was doing justice to Diana. Secondly, there was the choice that I made with Diana, because about Diana you can make many films, 90 years, many careers. You can do it in many ways. But like I said in the beginning, there was the story of the child star, the in-depth story, what it did to her also after being a child star and what it did to the family. And that was an in-depth story that, well, after meeting Shirley Temple, Sybil Jason, and all those other former child stars, I knew that Diana was the only one that could do that. And Diana also had that wish. Another important person that was also involved was Paul Peterson from the Minor Consideration, a former child star. And Diana worked closely with him in that time when they were changing the Coogan law. And so I knew that that was the first mission that we had, was actually to tell that in-depth story. So that was the focus of this film. Plus, I really wanted the world to see the Diana we know, because like I said, the first interview I did with her in Bristol, there she puts up the role of the caretaker, the godmother of all these child stars. She represents all the child stars. And when I got to her home, it was, I had the challenge to show Diana. It sounds very easy to do, but it isn't if you are dealing with someone who is used to the camera. It's very different if you film your neighbor who's not used to filming. You will see your neighbor. But before you get to see Diana, it requires a little trust, comfort, and I think that really succeeded. I wanted to see a film with the Diana I know, and you all know. So that, yeah, and of course the editing. I wanted to show you, it's right here, the laptop that edited this film. That was this body here. The whole film is edited on this laptop, and it's small. That's an obstacle. So those were the obstacles, I think. Yeah.
Well, and one thing that was mentioned about was her referencing herself in the third person, and I think that it was a real transition for her to realize she was part of herself. I mean, that it was part of her extension of herself, that it wasn't a separate person, but she really had felt disconnected. I mean, for decades she wasn't on the camera, behind, in front of the camera, and yet she had made her rounds to different film festivals, and people were, I think, so impressed with what she had to say or the books she wrote that she got really comfortable with everything again. She was obviously just, comfortable with being in the focus when she realized people really wanted to hear what she had to say. But why don't you tell us the story about the photo album? I think that's a great one.
Oh, yes, that also. Yeah, the Pordenone Silent Film Festival played a very big role for her to start feeling comfortable with Baby Peggy. I have to say that too. And I think the Bristol Slapstick Silent Film Festival and all those festivals, they played a big role in for her to accept Baby Peggy. The album, yes, I was there filming. We did everything in 3 days. And I was filming some of the articles that she had a file with articles of Baby Peggy. And suddenly she came out, Vera, I think this is something you will find interesting. This is the family album. And I was always thinking that vaudeville, the period that she was working in the vaudeville, very interesting period, but there was nothing basically of that time, no pictures, nothing. And then all of a sudden she walked into it with the album. And I was so amazed at also the baby pictures with her family, but also all those pictures on the road in the vaudeville up till I think the 1940s, the album. So that was really a big surprise. And I just saw today some fragments that I filmed her with the album, and she explains what is what. And I think there are some pieces in the documentary from it as well. So later, when I was already back, Diana said, Vera, I'm going to send you the album. And I thought, oh my God, I hope it's not getting lost in the mail, you know? So I was really looking out for the DHL or any other service for this album. And I just saw that car passing my work. And I thought I have to run home right now to get this album to see if that is the album. And it was. So, and I brought it back when the film was ready. You all know when I came to Nels, I brought the album back. But she said that I said, Diana, you have to tell your family about the album. And she said, oh, nobody even knows it exists. So I don't know if that was so, but that's a nice story. Yeah.
Did you have something to add to that, Frederick, before I saw your hand go up?
Yes, I'd like to ask Vera a question.
Oh, go right ahead.
Vera, as you know, Diana was an intellectual and a wonderful historian, and she had indeed told her own story in her own book, Whatever Happened to Baby Peggy. I'm curious to know whether she offered you guidance and feedback about how you were to tell her story.
Oh, no, nothing. No, she saw that as a separate thing. She saw me as the filmmaker, and she saw me as the person that would be able to do that. There was nothing that she also insisted on, or I don't want this in a film, or I don't want that, nothing of that kind. No, that she didn't.
Well, I have a question. I have to attribute this to Larry, actually, because Larry, a question that Larry suggested was, what was the biggest surprise that you encountered while you were making the documentary?
Yes, the biggest surprise. Well, one of the biggest surprises was, and you saw that actually, I put that clip of 3 minutes today on Vimeo. And if you notice, there she's talking about I, baby Peggy. So that was a surprise to me. After seeing her in Bristol, really talking about she really kept the distance there. So that really surprised me. The album surprised me with the pictures of the vaudeville years. And I think there was something else that surprised me as well. Of course, that she trusted me. That surprised me. You know, she trusted me to tell her story. So she surprised me actually I think with every phone call I had with her, she surprised me. She surprised me with her speed. At the time when I was working on the voiceover, which was all done at distance, I wrote the voiceover and she would edit it. And there is one narration that I asked her to write because I just wanted it to be in her language. And that was the introduction of her father, her family, where she came from in the film, quite in the beginning of the film. And so on the phone, she would, Vera, we have to rush, we have to go through this, blah, 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 blah. And she was going so fast, sometimes I couldn't meet up with her. And what I just remember now is that the moment, those few times that I've watched the film in Diana's presence, that was in Niles, and that was also in Hollywood, she every time at the same moment when her father was introduced, that's when she became emotional, where she shared just one tear. That's something I noticed from Diana.
Great, good.
Yeah.
Do you have one of your own questions, Michael?
Not at the moment, but I did want to mention how Diana had told me that there was a Niles connection with her father, and how he, this was maybe 1 or 2 years before she was born, is that her father was already doing stunt work, and he just kind of came into Niles and did a little bit of stunt work for SNA. there in the Niles Canyon. I think she said he never even went to the studio because the cowboys kind of camped out in the canyon, so they wouldn't have to, go from the studio every day. And so I think he said he was just there a few days or something, did a little bit of stunt work for Bronco Billy, and then moved on.
Yeah, they had just been let go in
I hope I
Chowchilla.
got that accurately.
They just been let go in Chowchilla, and they were on their way coming towards Niles, and they happened to stop and look down, and here looked like a stagecoach being robbed. And they're trying to figure out what in the world that was, so they went down, and the rest, of course, is history. He was hired for, I think she said, less than a week, so maybe.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, but I figured that's great. Yes, Frederick.
May I ask Vera another question?
Go ahead.
Yes, please do.
Vera, would you mind telling the story about the last day of filming and the battery charger?
The battery charger was not the last day of filming. That we save for the last minutes of this section. But the last day of filming, I was just remembering it today. Do you really want to hear it? Are you sure?
Yeah.
It was last day of filming was, of course, after, I don't know if you know how that whole week went for me. I worked on Saturday. I entered the plane on Sunday. On Monday, Dorothy. I have to thank Dorothy from here again for bringing me to Diana with my camera. Without Dorothy, that film also wouldn't have been made. So Dorothy, thank you. And so on Monday, I got to Diana. We started filming that afternoon. So we had 3 days to film, or 4. Then on Friday, we went to Niles. And at the moment, at that time, I really needed a rest. And that's when everybody came to celebrate her birthday. And I don't know, do you remember, Larry, that there was one time during that party that I begged you to take me back to the hotel because I couldn't hold my sleep anymore. I remember it so vividly. I wanted to watch Captain January, but I begged you to take me back to the hotel because I was facing the jet lag.
You were stumbling around a bit.
Then Sunday was the last day. Huh?
You were stumbling around a bit.
So Sunday, those were some of those memories, And Sunday, there was, I thought I have to do an interview after all the celebration, after everything. So we came back to the hotel in the room, and she brought out a little bottle of, I think of brandy, it was brandy or something like that. She put a glass for me and for her. So we toasted, and she started talking. I said, Diana, I hope you don't mind that I put on the camera. So I think that was also when the scene was shot where she puts on the makeup. You remember that lovely scene where she puts on the makeup? So that was done actually in the evening. So after completing that scene and putting on the makeup 3 times, she said, now I have to take it all off again. And so we did the interview, and that was also a great interview. And she talked. I said, Diana, do you mind? Because you have the big bed, and the hotel room has a bed, and you have a small table and a chair. So she was sitting, and eventually I just lied down, and I was like this, listening to Diana talking, That was actually the last day of filming. That was a great, it was one of those great moments. And there was something else you asked me. Oh, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
The battery charger story.
Oh, yes. There was a day, very special, historic day in America is always when a new president has to be elected. And if you know Diana Serra Cary, she always watches the news. The television is on from 6 or 7 in the morning until 10 in the evening on such a day. That day, I put on the charger. I had to charge the batteries of the camera. And I said, "Good morning, Diana." She said, "Oh, Vera, we are having such a problem. Mark has been calling the providers. The television isn't working." And she really wanted to have the television working because that was the election day in 2000. I think it was about November 6 or something, November 6, 2008. So there was a lot of running around, and eventually Mark went into the room and he said, "Vera, you are the one that unplugged the television here with your adapter." And that day, we had a new president. Barack Obama was elected on that day. That was the same day we filmed Outdoors, where one of the last scenes of the film, with a beautiful blue sky on the background. I was sitting on the street when I was filming that part, and that was the last scene of the film. And in the evening, we watched the speech of Barack Obama and that was quite an emotional day, for everybody. That was a day never to forget.
But what was the issue with the battery charger?
Well, the battery charger, I was the one that unplugged the television. And I had absolutely no idea it was connected there. So luckily,
we're picturing how funny that was.
It was funny, but I felt very guilty because Diana was so nervous because she was afraid that she was going to miss the whole election there. But it all turned out good for everybody. So,
Vera, for television purposes, your film could only be a certain number of minutes long. But I imagine there was lots of footage that you took of Diana that you wished you could have included.
mm-hmm.
How much of such footage exists?
Oops. Well, I think I have about 40 tapes, something like that, if I remember well. Maybe there's about 15, 20 hours of interview with Diana. And that was another challenge with Diana. Like you saw that clip I put on today, I just checked today for the first time since a decade. I was looking at some of the interviews, and you just put it on and immediately it's good. So that's another very big challenge, can be an obstacle as well. What are you going to put in the film and what not? So you really have to edit one-liners with Diana. So they always say less is more, because the more you add, the less will come over. So that was not easy to make a choice from. But I would actually like to review all those interviews again, because when I saw it today again, I felt, wow, this is really a film historian that we have speaking, who was also part of that time. And it would be nice to make a selection of all those interviews and make that available for people again, which I hope to do one of these days.
No doubt future historians and future documentary filmmakers will be coming to you asking if they can use that footage for documentaries that could be made on her again or other child stars from that era.
That is possible, of course. Yes. And another film could be made with that material as well, maybe. But yeah, that's very precious footage. And or maybe an archive would like to, to have it in an archive. That would actually be my main wish, that an archive would, because it's here with me in my house. And I would also feel more comfortable maybe when that material is in an archive.
I have a question for Stephanie. Hello, Stephanie. I was wondering if you could tell us any memories of the making of the documentary. I remember one scene, I believe it was at a playground, maybe nearby, and any other memories you might have of while Vera was making this documentary with your grandma.
Yeah, I was so young when we made the documentary, but I do remember the hopscotch outside of the house. We talked about how she had never played games like that when she was younger. And so she always loved living through me, sort of like hearing about my childhood and like games and stuff. I remember her showing me and explaining photographs on the couch, and I remember that's part of the documentary. And just being able to be with her in Europe, and I had my little camera following my grandma, and I don't know, it was really nice, and it's really nice to hear all the stories that I may have forgotten or things I didn't know about her. And so I am just glad to have been there for that and be here for this. And I really appreciate you guys doing all of this.
Well, thank you
You're
for
very
being here,
welcome.
Stephanie.
Great, great. Well, I'll
Okay, any other
interject-
questions
I'll
from the panel here?
I'll interject some stuff.
I can add a little other story now.
Oh, great.
Yeah. Is to Stephanie. And there we get what you see in that scene is the improviser. You see the improviser Diana Serra Cary in that scene because she doesn't literally read to Stephanie the whole article. She started to improvise it. So that was actually very interesting that what happened there. And she did it in a very, very storytelling way, which is a very great scene for the film. And of course, she said also Baby Peggy was also an improviser, which is very nice, you know, always to make that link with Baby Peggy and Diana Serra Cary. You can always somehow make that sort of link in a different way. They are connected. So
Okay.
that was nice.
Okay,
Yeah.
if unless Larry or Frederick have any more questions.
I do. Larry, unless you want to go first, that's fine.
Well, I'm going to interject something in here completely off, out in left field. During several years, maybe about 3, where I picked Diana up, I brought her back to a hotel in Niles. And at that hotel was one of the piano players. His name is David Drazin, and he's on my screen a little bit lower. He and Carol and I would sit with Diana for breakfast from about 8 until 11. Because there was no, David, do you have anything that you can add to this? If you're having a bad hair day, there you are. Yeah, please say something.
Is this thing working?
Yes.
Hear me?
You're there.
Oh my goodness.
He was on the Kid Reporter DVD because I wanted a West Coast connection and an East Coast connection. And Diana said, these 2 guys are my favorite piano players. So I had to put them on there. So with all of that, David, say a few words, please.
Well, wow. Well, it was in 2004 that Carol and I were in Pordenone because I was a guest pianist for the first time. And I was introduced to David Keane, and he introduced me to Diana. So that was amazing. And we talked quite a bit and hung out together, and it was always wonderful. to be with her. And when I read her book, Whatever Happened to Baby Peggy, one of the times we were talking, I told her that that around 1930 or 31, there's this story she tells about running into a family that was living in like an abandoned warehouse or a school, like some sort of big abandoned building, and this family had moved in. And I told her I thought it was so like out of Charles Dickens that she would meet somebody like that. And she told me that she didn't tell the people's real name in the book, and she told me what they were, but I can't remember what the names of the people really were. And she did elaborate on meeting those people, but it just shows you the depression was really bad. That a family could just take up living in like an abandoned academy or something and make it a home, and nobody bothered them for who knows how long.
Great.
Okay, we have a question from Joy. Vera, how long did it take to make the documentary?
I think about 6 years. That
Pretty good.
was, yeah, one of the reasons was because I made first an edit of a little bit more than an hour, and it had to be re-edited again into 53 minutes. And I thought that that was going to be an easy job, but that was actually repeating the whole process again of the post-production. It took me about a year to edit this film on this laptop. So it was about 6 years, yes.
Okay, we have another question here. This is kind of bizarre, but did Diana ever mention seeing the movie Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? Because obviously, the title is taken from that.
I do know that. I think Diana must have seen the film, because actually seeing Whatever Happened to Baby Jane was part of her own research. It was the research she did into the life of child stars. And I think she was referring to, I forgot the name of one of those it's in her book, one of those first child stars that appeared on stage in the 1900s something. I forgot the name of her, but I'm sure Diana saw that film, yes. But it was not in any way related to Diana or Baby Peggy.
I think that whatever happened to the industry, but at the same time, though, if it made people go, "Oh, that's interesting," it worked fine.
I think the child star you're thinking of from the 19th century is Little Lottie.
Yes, yes, you're right. Yes.
Vera, I'd like to ask you another question. One of the things that fascinates me is the vaudeville era.
Yes, me too.
And because vaudeville was one of the most important forms of entertainment for Americans in the 1920s, in the teens and 20s, and into the 30s. And so when I would have the chance to talk to Diana, I always asked her about her vaudeville career because it just fascinated me. Vaudeville wasn't a step down from Hollywood. Vaudeville was on par, and the biggest stars of stage and screen in the United States would also do vaudeville tours. Vaudeville was a lot of work, though, because it was a lot of traveling and a lot of bad hotels. And so in your movie, you have a lot of wonderful images of her publicity photos from that era. Did you get those pictures from her, or did you find them in archives, or both?
I bought some of them because coincidentally some of them passed by on eBay, so I have them. And some of them are, of course, from the family album from Diana herself. And I agree very much with you that the vaudeville period was actually, I almost forgot to mention that would have been a film I would have loved to make. I wanted to go deeper into the vaudeville period. And the last time I saw Diana was in, I think, 2012 in New York with the screening at the Museum of Modern Art. we didn't have much time together, and that's when we started to talk about. I started to ask her questions about the vaudeville period, and that's when she told me the story about the police. That her father was the policeman, you know, and that must have been a very traumatic experience, because he would chain her on stage so she couldn't move. And that was something, you know, that, like what you say, that was being repeated. How many times a day did they do that kind of show? 3 times, 4 times? And her sister, her mother were just there, you know, backstage or in hotels. I do know that that must have been a very traumatic, that was a very hectic time for her, I'm sure.
Well, it was certainly a lot of work having to travel on trains and stay in
Yes,
terrible hotels and live out of a suitcase for years. But
yes,
but that's how it was for everyone. Her life as a vaudevillian was no harder than that of a big star that we all know today, like Al Jolson.
yes,
He had the same life that she did, and she was making as much money. Remember, in her book, she says she was making $1,500 a week. That was top dollar. Nobody earned more money
yes.
than that. She was
I
a
don't know if that was
superstar
for all those years. I'm not sure if that was for all those years, but probably
at
the
the
first year.
beginning, at
But
least.
vaudeville was already on, you know, becoming less. So yes, I found that also very interesting, but that was not something that she wanted to do, you know. And this time she was facing her audience, which was not always the audience that you have now, you know, going to the theater, but that were people that were drinking, screaming and yelling. So I cannot imagine how that must have been for her, actually.
Okay, I have something here. Hello, Karen. You just typed in a question. You must have been reading my mind, because I was just about to bring this up. In the later 20s, Warner Brothers was developing their Vitaphone technology for sound films, and they hired all of these different vaudeville acts to do these short films. And unfortunately, Diana did not do one. Which I always remember. I've told her a few times, gee, Diana, I wish that you had done a Vitaphone short film like so many others. And Diana said, well, she felt it would have been a betrayal to
Yes,
the vaudeville stars, because if you're a vaudevillian, you put your act on film, then the film goes and you don't, and you don't get paid after that. So she felt that it just wouldn't have been right, the right thing to do. But of course, today, I sure wish she had. I wish we'd had a record of her vaudeville act like we have a record of her film appearances.
She told me that in vaudeville in the later years that she actually was singing and dancing. And I asked her what song she sang, and she said it was "Yes, Sir, That's My Baby."
Oh. Well, that's interesting, because Vera, this is in your documentary, late in your documentary, when she visited her father when he was dying, and they watched one of her silent films together. And her father said to her, I wish that it was a talking film, because you have such a lovely voice.
absolutely, absolutely.
And I
And what
guess,
we did, and what I did with the film, that's actually the intention of the film, is to give Baby Peggy a voice. Because when you look at Baby Peggy, I mean, the eyes, the expression, yeah, like she said, she jumps right at you, she would have said, you know. And now she, of course, I mean, she always had a beautiful voice. That's indeed very interesting that her father made that remark. Yes.
That's one of the most heartfelt and tender parts of your movie, Vera, when baby Peggy, after years, decades of not seeing her father, goes to his side at his deathbed, taking her son with her. That brought tears
Mhm,
to my eyes. And
mhm.
I just want to thank you so much for making that such a moving thing in your film.
Okay.
Oh yes, one of the other very moving things in your documentary was the letter from her sister.
Oh, yes.
That just chokes me up every time I hear that.
That was a surprise for me as well, to be honest. That was the moment when she became emotional. You know, you are in the middle of an interview, and you know, Diana is always a strong person, and all of a sudden you notice a change, you know. I wouldn't say tension, but you notice something is going to happen here. What other filmmakers would do, they will start zooming into the eyes, you know, they want to see the emotion, crying, tears. And I didn't, and I felt that that wasn't necessary to do. But what she said was, I turned off the camera, and of course I went to her, and she said, Vera, she said, I have to give you a compliment. She said, there's only two people that made me cry in my life. She said, that was my father, and that's you. That's what she said. That is what happened after that. Yes.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions for Vera?
Well, perhaps you should just say what the letter was about, because, you know, in case people haven't seen the documentary.
The letter, I don't remember at the moment the letter.
It mentions their childhood and how Diana gave up so much as a child to, you know, do what she did. And Louise, which,
yeah, I think she forgave baby Peggy.
Yes.
Like that, you know. That is why it was important to make this film, because there's always a brother or a sister. You know, it's not only the child star's life, but I watched another part of the documentary today, that it was Louise that was mostly affected by the career of baby Peggy, because she said, Diana said, Louise was a very good piano player. She said, and she hated it. And the reason that Louise hated it is because nobody paid attention to her. Nobody told Louise, you are a great piano player. But as soon as baby Peggy walked into the room, everybody started yelling and screaming. So that was a very pathetic story that I just saw again today, you know.
I think it's really important for people to think about the family members, how they are affected one way or the other. And I thought that was a really sweet moment. I mean, that's also giving of the person, in this case, Diana, to share that moment and to talk about how hard it must have been for her sister, and for her sister, the big deal to me, how hard it was for Diana. How hard, you know, because yes, she was given all the attention and all this, but it doesn't make it easier for her. It actually makes it much more difficult. So Vera, there's actually a question for you about what projects you're working on right now, or anything you're seeing in the future. And just, we'd like to know more about you too.
Oh, that's nice. Well, there are some people really waiting for years now for my next film. And I took on quite a large project about Marlene Dietrich and her fans. And I've known some of the fans that I've known for 30 years, and some more recent. And I follow them in their lives, and how Marlene inspired them. And we go back to the archive, because Marlene was also a collector of herself. You know, she was her own fan. And in the archive, we discovered the letters, the love letters from the author Eric Maria Remarque, from All Quiet on the Western Front. And there's a little bit of their relationship, the affair of Marlene and Eric Maria Remarque, because they were strongly connected. They were sort of soulmates together. But this project I've been working on maybe 10 years now. And I hope to raise some funding to be able to complete that film. And I really, really want that film to be ready next year. But that will be a feature, hopefully, maybe 90 minutes if I can make it. I would love that to be 90 minutes, if possible. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Great. I have a little bit about the previous subject. I didn't want to interrupt anybody when we were talking about the letter, but over the years, I had talked to Diana about her sister, who lived 45 minutes north of me. And I wanted to visit her, and yet I didn't want to go against Diana because she said we're not on speaking terms, but we are. But we well, anyway, to make a long story short, I never did get to see her, so that's one regret I have about the relationship.
Yeah, I understand. That's something you don't easily do, you know, or you would think it will happen someday.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's not possible anymore, right?
I'd like to tell you a couple of vaudeville stories, or with the vaudeville. I don't know, Vera, if she ever told you these stories about a couple of times when she actually confronted Al Jolson.
Yes.
The one time was she and her father were going to see this musical play, or this live musical. And so they go to the theater, they're sitting in the theater, and all of a sudden her father discovers that, hey, we're in the wrong theater. This isn't what we were going to see. So they leave, and Diana mentioned, God, I was sorry because I was really enjoying this. So they leave and they go to the right theater, and the musical they had intended to go to, and it was called Big Boy, which starred Al Jolson. So they're late. So the performance had already started, and Jolson is out on the stage singing. And so they enter the theater, and all of a sudden there's this buzz in the theater. Hey, it's Baby Peggy. Look, Baby Peggy just came in. Look, it's Baby Peggy. And of course, Jolson noticed this, and he was such an egomaniac. He noticed that all of a sudden people aren't paying attention to him. So he stops the whole show, walks up to the edge of the stage and goes, okay, hey, everybody, look, Baby Peggy just came in and sat down. There she is. Now you came here to see me, okay? Now there was another story where they were doing a benefit for tuberculosis, for the eradication of tuberculosis. And of course it was in this theater, and they had done all the regular vaudeville acts already. And so this benefit was happening after the vaudeville acts, and all of the big vaudeville stars were there. And so this was around 2:30 in the morning, and this show is still going on. And all these vaudeville acts are kind of lined up to do their act. And Al Jolson was scheduled to go on, and Diana was scheduled to go on right after him. And Diana's father says to Al, Mr. Jolson, would you please let my daughter go on before you? Because, hey, it's 2:30 in the morning, and, she's just a child, and, she needs her rest. And he looks down at Diana and he goes, I was a child once too. That's showbiz, and wouldn't let her go on before him.
Yeah.
But that was Jolson. So
True.
I just want to say, Vera, I recognize you from the Marlene Dietrich DVDs. Are you interviewed on her DVDs in the storage in the museum where her stuff is stored? You are so much like the lady on the video.
No, I was never. No,
Oh
I'm
my
not.
goodness, you're a dead
No,
ringer.
no.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No, the archivist, the woman in charge of the museum of Marlene's museum is almost
Yeah.
exactly like you, has the accent and everything. Same hair. I apologize.
That's okay.
What did
That's
you?
I
bought
wish
the
I
box set.
was there.
Okay, sorry. I have to get my eyes checked. Cataracts.
Thanks for asking.
Have
I
any,
want to see your video, your documentary.
you have any questions,
Yes.
Rena? You have any more questions?
Oh, I think we're nearing this. I think Michael has a plug for a wonderful project that we're currently on for Diana. We're hoping that we can get funded in the next year or so. So Michael, do you want to put in the plug for the GoFundMe?
okay, yes. Diana would like to be buried near Father Sarah. And if you would like to help with the niche, it is, you can just look up on the internet, Diana Serra Cary GoFundMe, and that will bring up the page and you can contribute and help out with that.
So yeah, our museum did GoFundMe's for other things for Diana, but this is put on by some other fans of hers. And there are several Facebook pages regarding Diana. So just type her name in and you can see more information, and there is babypeggy.com as well. And we're glad everybody checked in here, and we know this will be living on. We'll be posting this on our YouTube page, and it'll live on our October 2020 online program at our filmmuseum.org website. So it's great. Thank you all for coming.
There's one thing I would like to add to it. I was involved with some of her films were found in Amsterdam, and I brought them out from the bunkers. I filmed them direct. They still had one reel that was not duplicated, nothing yet. So I had them run it and I filmed it. And that's partly what you see in the documentaries direct from the nitrate. Some of those, because I screened it in Pordenone, some of them were identified. And finally, I think it was partly thanks to David Sten, who made it possible to have these films being restored. And they are now at the UCLA. I never got to see most of them in their new condition. And I don't know, it would be nice if some of the Baby Peggy films would be available for screening or watching. And I know that you also have some of the films up of Baby Peggy. And I today watched Carmen Jr. And I must say she was unique. Baby Peggy was really unique comparing to a lot of other child stars, her timing, her gimmick. And I think it's amazing if at that early age, 3 years old, if you can do something like that as a child. So that's just what I would like to end up with.
Larry, are you wanting to share something with us?
Yep, The Darling of New York.
Oh, yes.
This is one of the films, right, Vera?
Oh, yes. That was found. Was it by Tommy Slatches? Do you know his name exactly? Tommy from New York that found that reel on a flea market.
Yeah.
Which is the only piece Diana has always wanted. That was actually her favorite film, The Darling of New York, which was a very challenging film to make at the time for Universal, what she told me. And there's only this part of it's about 10 minutes, I believe, huh?
I think it's about a little less than 5.
Less than 5. There
Yeah.
you go.
And
yeah,
she said this was her first big hit, and Uncle Carl made 2 after this because it was such a big hit.
yes. So we're still looking for the rest of the film.
Right.
It's out there. We just have to find it.
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. I'm sure there are faults that still have a lot of reels to be identified. I do know that in Amsterdam, some of the reels still probably have to be run completely to really know what's on a reel, because some of them they have only seen the beginning, and you never know what the whole film is. So there's still a lot to be identified besides having to be duplicated and restored.
Well, it was found by our good friend Tommy Stathis
Yes.
in New York. He found the last reel at a flea market. And Diana, I believe, tells stories about the fire because it actually was happening around her. They were not, and she said it's been pretty amazing how she remembered so many things from the films, but she had to have remembered them because she didn't have access to see them. In fact, sometimes she was seeing films for the first time because she, when you're making them and you're 3 years old, she wasn't going to see her own films in the theaters and remembering them. Seeing these films potentially decades later. So her memories were actually of making the films. And she talked about the fact that the smoke was there and the fire was there and how they would, and that's part of the reason why she got involved with the child star, program, a minor consideration and such, because she didn't want anybody to go through what she went through so many years earlier.
There's just another memory coming up again, Rena. Do you know that there's a short Baby Peggy film, Such is Life? You know that short film as well?
Sure.
Yes. Yes. Do you know that Louise, her sister, is in that film as well?
Oh, wow.
Yes. The fact what happened is that I filmed Diana in Pordenone. The film, she saw it there for the first time, Such is Life, which was also found here in Amsterdam. And after the screening, no, not after the screening. It was maybe a few weeks later. Can you imagine that she kept it all to herself? And a couple of weeks later, I had her on the phone and she said, Louise is in that film. I identified Louise, and I can, if you want to know where she is, I can show it to you, where you see her sister is sitting on at the table. I think almost next to her is Louise, and Louise was very excited to be, and you see her running through the screen. So I think that was the only time her sister was in one of the short films.
Well, as you can see, there's a reason why we weren't running video as part of the segment. For the most part, it's okay for us to talk over it, but Zoom has a lot of benefits, but the video component's not simple. But we do get the idea. So thank you, Larry, for sharing this. It's a pretty special fragment, and that, I believe that's been on TCM, as has the documentary. But people can see the documentary available if you go to the link on our website and click on, and you get a discount. The first 100 people get a nice discount to see the documentary that Vera worked so hard on. And I'm glad that people get that chance. You can also buy it, of course, through all the usual means and purchase it for either download, or you can buy the DVD itself. The DVD is really special because it's actually got the Captain January, I believe, and a couple of other shorts. So yes, it's a definite worthwhile thing to get the DVD. It's got extra bonus stuff on it.
Christmas is coming up.
Yes, this is true. So Vera, is there anything else that you want to say about the documentary, or Diana? So we're kind of coming to a close at this point.
Well, no, I think that should be it. I want to thank Mark from here for taking care of Diana up till the last all those years, and I think that's an amazing thing. And oh yes, and of course now you mentioned it, you are all in a very, very exciting time now with the election, and I'm very happy that I was able to meet Diana and know you guys, because that was what made America great to me. And I think let's do it again, Yes. Vote. That's all I can say.
Got it. I think we know what you're saying.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Final words, Rena.
I think that just if people watch the films that we have available for them, a couple of them we want to thank Ben Modell and Under Crank Productions and MoMA and Library of Congress for the loan of circus clowns, and that works nicely into our circus theme for this weekend as well. And the other films and interviews and things that we have available. So take a look at our website, watch all those films, and thank you all for being part of this.
Thank you, Rina and Larry, Michael. Thank you for having me.
It was a
Okay,
pleasure.
I think we're closing down.
See everyone.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.